right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's NBA pre-lock show, where we are here to go game by game and kind of show you what the game plan is from our perspective on this slate. I'm sharing my screen today. B-Dub will share his tomorrow for that crazy slate I don't even want to think about. But today, we have a nice 7-gamer. I like this slate a decent amount. How are you feeling about it, man?
Yeah, I like it quite a bit too. We have a nice amount of value, but I don't feel like it's overwhelming. So, yeah, definitely like it overall.
Yeah, it's a nice balance of a slate, whereas like we have some injury news, we have some value, but every team doesn't have value. So it's like pretty easy to kind of figure out where to go from that perspective. The harder part, or not the harder part, but the part I like about the slate is you can get different pretty easily. And in GPPs, that always keeps things fun. Cujo, Kevin, Wagwan, get to see y'all. Jules, you as well. Showtime, everybody. Kevin, I see you. Let's get this out of the way. Is it crazy to fade Jokic of all the value? No, it's definitely not crazy. Am I going over my way to do that? No, but it's not crazy. But we'll talk about it. Good to see you guys. 7 games. Let's jump right into it. It's not 11 like we had last week, but, still a decent amount where we can't waste too much time. First things first, we have the Hornets going up against the Cavs. 239.5 total. This is third highest total on the slate. Spread's pretty wide. The weird thing for me is just kind of wrapping my brain around the Cavs not being this shutdown defense, because they've been good for so long, but now they're playing at a faster pace. They're giving up more points, so they're not a must avoid. But this is still a team you probably won't see too much of unless you're trying to force some exposure here. From an injury news perspective, Ryan Kalkbrenner is out. So we're expecting Moussa Diabate to start. And then we have Colin Sexton out, who's been out for a good amount of time here. Are you forcing exposure to any of these Hornets, or are you kind of passing on them?
Yeah, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. In the past, we've always considered Cleveland as one of the more dominant teams and teams you don't really want to target. But like you said, they're not really that this year, and you can attack this defense for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if Hornets covered the spread. To be honest, they have enough offensive firepower to keep it somewhere interesting if they're knocking down shots. So I do want some pieces on this side of the ball, especially at the low ownership. So I'm kind of sticking to my LaMelo is not typically part of the group that I force in, but I am forcing him in tonight. As long as it stays close, he should see about 30 minutes. And we saw a couple games ago, he only played 29 minutes and put up a crazy score for the amount he played. So definitely willing to take a shot there. 5% min. Put a 5% min on Brandon Miller. He has 50-point upside. And then I am going to continue to play Conca until he just starts sucking out of nowhere. Cleveland bleeds quite a bit to the 2 guard as well. So he's another guy with 50-point upside, so 2% ownership. Definitely taking a shot there. I'm definitely getting off the Bridges train. He just hasn't been consistent enough and very frustrating play. I don't think we need to go there tonight.
Can't stand that, man. Can't stand him. But he's on the team, so, it is what it is. This is a game I just want some exposure to because we have so much value. This is just a spot that one of many where I just like forcing exposure to some of these low-owned guys. They won't all get into my lineups as much as some of the other priorities on this slate, but still worth mentioning. I have a 5% min on LaMelo Ball, kind of like what you mentioned. Just want some exposure here. 8,400 isn't the ceiling price we've been paying for him before in the past, so it's a spot where I'm willing to take a shot in a matchup that's not as tough as it looks like it is on paper. I like the Conca play. I have a 5% min on him. Similar play to LaMelo, but a little bit cheaper. And then Diabate, he's showing up in 60% of my lineups. He was showing up in like 80 to 90. But with some of the other value we have on this slate, I just didn't want to overexpose myself that much to a guy that can be a little hit or miss. Speaking of hit or miss, Mason Plumlee at 3K is someone I just wanted to add into the mix of value options. These are just 2 guys who typically don't see too much run. Diabate is at least a decent points per minute guy, but Mason Plumlee is just bad. But assuming he can go out there, get rebounds against a team without Mobley, fast-paced environment, a little bit higher chance he can have slate breaking upside than usual. So not someone I feel like you have to have, but just someone I like having in the mix.
I did want to mention, because I completely passed over Musa. He's, of course, one of the centers I'm focusing my game around tonight. I'm at 70% on him.
Yeah. One of the better value plays we have with Kalkbrenner out. Next up, we have the Cavs side of things going up against the Hornets. For the Cavs tonight, they are pretty healthy. They're really getting healthier. Sam Merrill's back in the rotation. Craig Porter's back in the rotation. Garland's been back for a while now. Of course, Mobley's out, so like that kind of matters, but everyone's kind of priced appropriately with the other guys returning. Things pretty much balance out from that perspective. Any of these guys standing out for you? You take a shot on your guy?
Just two guys. I put a 10% min on Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, just due to the matchup. And again, I love the game environment. So they both have really nice upside, and we have enough value, especially to force in Mitchell and still fit in other studs on the slate. So definitely want some exposure there with their potential ceiling. I thought about Jared Allen, but again, I'm really focusing my play around three centers tonight. Already mentioned one. I think the other two will be obvious, but we'll talk more about them once we get to those games. But don't hate the shot on Jared Allen, but I just couldn't get there myself.
The thing I had to stop myself from doing was making Jared Allen a leverage play because everything in me wanted to be super over the field on him. But it's just not making sense to do it right now. Just the limited amount of minutes, and then also just him not producing.
His price went up quite a bit too.
Yeah, price is up there too. It doesn't hurt me too much, but you're right. It's not as low as it has been. So I just put a 5% min on Jared Allen because of all the other options we have on this slate. Then I put a 12% min on Donovan Mitchell matching the field. I haven't had the best luck. When I take a min off of someone, they usually have been going off here lately. I did have a min on Darius Garland, but I ended up taking it off right before the show, just trying to get more lineups to run with some of the guys I feel a little bit stronger about. One thing I'll mention before we hop off to the next game is that a lot of people are going to talk to you about opportunity costs. A lot of people are forcing exposure to the later games on this slate so they can have more optionality to late swap and just have more flexibility in their lineups, which I don't think is a bad approach. It makes a lot of sense. For me, I like to kind of zig when others are zagging, or vice versa, however you say it. When most of the industry is talking about not having exposure to these first two games, that's when I'm like, you know what? I'll have some exposure then if no one else is going to do it. So it's a very logical strategy to force a lot of exposure to the late game so you can adapt as needed. But right now, the only real piece of news we're missing on is Cooper Flag, right, Brandon? Or is there more Q tags?
Yeah, I'd say there's a couple more Q tags later on, but Cooper Flag's definitely the biggest that actually changes things.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Next up, we have the Pacers going up against the Celtics. Not a game I love on paper. It's the lowest total on the slate. Third widest spread on the slate at 11.5. Celtics are a team I don't pick on. I thought they might be a little bit worse defensively this season, but they aren't. They're still good. From the Pacers, though, tonight, when it comes to injury news, TJ McConnell is out. So that's kind of why you're going to see a slight boost to guys like Andrew Nembhard and just guards in general. Their minutes floor are a little bit safer, but TJ hasn't been playing too much these days. You like any of the Pacers here?
I only took one shot, and that's on Andrew Nembhard. I know he hasn't been in the greatest form. He's just been shooting very poorly. Last game, they got blown out too, so he didn't get full run, so that hurt him even more. But I know what upside he has. I wish he was a bit lower owned. I was kind of surprised to see him at 10% in this spot, but I'm just going to mesh the field at 10%, not going to go too crazy. I think it definitely helps that McConnell is out too. I mean, they still have Quentin Jackson and Ethan Thompson. They'll probably get more minutes too, but they'll probably rely a little bit more on Nembhard, and he can potentially see even more minutes in this spot, mainly if it stays competitive. So willing to take a shot there. Did think about Siakam because, again, we have all the value in the world to force in these more expensive guys, but he was one guy I didn't force in. I just don't like this spot enough to do that.
Yeah, it's an awful spot. I would never argue against that to absolutely anybody. A couple questions that came in. Kyle said, how do you play cash games in single entry GPP? I don't play cash in general, but I'll highlight that for NBA. I don't play cash. We do have coaches who are really good at cash in the Discord. Like you can at Madness or Mutt. They can definitely give you maybe a bit more advice on that, even uppers. Single entry GPP, if you have a specific question, I would say in general, the approach is usually to kind of follow cashy or chalky plays and then just get different in one or two spots. Is usually the rule of thumb, but B-Dub, I know you play a lot more single entry than I do. Do you have anything else you would add there for just advice on single entry lineups?
Yeah, I was going to say cash, you definitely just pretty much load up on chalky guys. Like Jokic is probably the easiest cash play of tonight. As far as single entry, you can build it kind of similar to a cash line, and then you just try to find like 1 to 2 lower pivots. Because if you don't want to chop if you're running the same exact line as your cash game, you'll definitely do that. Ideas always to identify those low round guys that no one's really on.
Yeah, and even for single entry these days, if it's a smaller field GPP, you don't even have to focus on finding someone too low owned. It's just getting different off a chalk play. Just like, switch someone else in a similar range or something like that. Demetrius said, do you use the force at least one player rule? No, I do not. A lot of what Brandon and I do is you'll hear us mention a lot about mins, and that's kind of like the min that we're going to put on a player here to get them to show up that amount or relatively close to it. But there's always a lot of different ways you can go about using the DS. Yeah. One of the reasons I like using it is you have flexibility.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like about that rule is it puts somebody in every single line, and it might be somebody who you shouldn't even be playing. Whereas, like you're kind of seeing throughout as we go through these games with the men's, we're controlling those guys, those lower owned guys that we want, and not allowing like super turds in lines.
Or you can just, trust the projections. There's advice in the Discord on how to use the DS and just roll with the projections. But I like to have a little bit more control. That might be a problem of mine.
Yeah.
Volaholic said, don't fight with the DS too much. It's always a good piece of advice not to fight it too much unless you like fighting like I do. Then it's totally fine. Let's see. Other side of this, for me, Pacers, I have a 5% min on Siakam. Like you said, I don't like this matchup, but because we have value, I'm comfortable forcing some exposure here. Siakam's one of those guys who's a little bit on the bottom of my list of players I'm forcing exposure to. So if the DS wasn't running the way I wanted it to, like if it was saying can't make more than like 140, 145 lineups, he's someone I would take off. Right now it's making 149, and I like hand building one lineup, so I'm okay with that. But if I was getting much more resistance, I would take that min off. And then 10% min on Nembhard with TJ McConnell out. Minutes floor is a bit safer, but the matchup is still tough. Not someone I'm prioritizing too much, but just matching the field. Next up, we have the Celtics going up against the Pacers. Pacers are not a team I'm overly concerned with when it comes to matchups, just that are right in front of you. But we did get the news that Jordan Walsh is out. He's fighting an illness, and then Tatum's been out for a while for this team. Nothing stands out too much for these guys. Do you like them?
I only forced one guy, Jaylen Brown. He's finally playing like how he should with Tatum out. His floor seems to be around 50 points, and if this game can stay close, then that's where we can see him reach 60 to 70 points. So somebody like that I want exposure to. Pacers play at a faster pace too, so definitely a lot of potential for him tonight. I did think about Derek White. I saw you take a shot on him. it's just kind of, I know you like this rule too, where if somebody burns everybody one night and then everybody jumps off the next night, just makes me want to play him a bit more. So don't hate that play, but I just like other guards a bit more around his price range. But I definitely considered it myself.
Yeah. I mean, Derek White falls in the Siakam bucket for me. Not really too much of a priority, but like you said, he burned a lot of people last time out. Jaylen Brown's back. It doesn't really make sense for Derek White to go off, which is usually why someone like Derek White ends up going off on a slate in a pretty fast-paced matchup. So he's just someone I want exposure to, but not someone I feel like I have to have exposure to. And then 15% min on Jaylen Brown. The upside is clear and present at this point. So just want to make sure he wasn't not showing up in my lineups, which he wasn't in my original runs at least. Let's see. Smitch, I see your question. We'll get to that when we get to the Nuggets game. Next up, we have the Dallas Mavericks going up against the Pelicans. Second highest total on the slate, but the closest spread, which is nice. Pelicans are a team we've been picking on all year long. But the question mark here is literally, we have some Q tags here from Dallas. We have Cooper Flag listed as questionable. We would expect a guy like Max Christie to start in that situation in a really soft matchup. That's a smash spot for Max Christie. He's burned us plenty of times before in the past, but this is a spot he shouldn't hurt us too much as long as he plays. Speaking of Max Christie, he's also questionable. So if he doesn't play tonight, that's a big boost to guys like Brandon Williams, your favorite guy, D'Angelo Russell, would get a little bit more interesting.
Not anymore.
Yeah, back in the good old days he was, but that's in the past. So because of the Q tags, we have some potential value, but a lot of these guys like Cooper Flag, they were at shoot around. So it's a spot where we're a little nervous for the if, but it seems likely we won't have to worry about it too much. Najee Marshall Revenge. I think you probably like this team a lot, right? Or am I off?
Yeah, I do. It's a really great matchup. We love games against the Pelicans, of course. And I really didn't have to do anything to this team to get them to show just because it's that good of a spot for them. So Anthony Davis, I know can be a scary play. You always wonder if he's going to get hurt halfway into the game or right at the beginning. But when it makes sense to play him, I play him. I like his price. I like the matchup. And if it does stay close, he should definitely smash in this spot. So I've been kind of floating around 30%. I'm at 27, so I'm okay with that. I would probably prefer it a little bit higher, but nothing crazy. If Flag does play, I'm okay with him. Looks like he's finally coming into his game and just been performing better, showing nice upside. I'm around 20% there, right at 19. Najee Marshall, didn't like him enough to force him, but I didn't have to. I'm right at fill weight at 13%. And then I have some Brandon Williams, I believe, 13% Brandon Williams. He's kind of been better out of the guard so far. Him and Nembhard, I feel like kind of flip-flop between their performances, but I'd say Brandon Williams kind of has the longer streak going on and is a bit cheaper too. So he's kind of one of the guards out of the two that I prefer. And I think that is it for me.
Yeah, this is a team that should show up for you naturally. You shouldn't have to make too many changes in the DS to get these guys to pop. Because I've made other changes, I had to force some exposure to these guys. And so I put a 50% min on AD to make sure he was showing up in half my lineups. You can't trust AD. He's a glass cannon, whatever you want to call him. But he's 9,200 and in the softest matchup you can possibly have as a big. I'm always going to be over the field on that. 20% min on Cooper Flag because he's Cooper Flag and he's still not 8K yet. So I'm going to keep shooting that shot until he's more expensive. 15% min on Najee Marshall. Like the matchup. Revenge narrative never, I was going to say has never hurt anybody, but it definitely has. But 15% exposure to a guy like Najee who can be explosive in a soft matchup I like. And then I'm with you on Brandon Williams. I have a 20% min on him. Want to make sure I was over the field. on him. Guys like PJ Washington and Ryan Nimbard, they're not bad plays to me. They're low owned and they're in a game environment I like a lot, but I didn't take a shot on either one of them, but I don't think they're bad plays. Well, 80, aka Street Clothes. That is his other name. Hopefully we don't see that version tonight, but it's always 50-50 shot with him. And then, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing with the Mavs. For the Pelicans side of things, I can't stand this team anymore. They're healthy and they play everybody. I think we're really just waiting for guys like Zion and Poole to really take the bull by the horns and just run with this team. But for now, they're just kind of playing everybody in the mid to high 20-minute range, which is not fun from a DFS perspective. What are your thoughts, though? From what are you doing with these guys?
Yeah, this is one team that I wish I liked because I like the game overall. But like you said, everybody's healthy. They run deep rotations, and it's kind of hard to trust who will pop off. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple people did, but it's literally a guessing game with Poole and Zion back. I wish this was a slate I can take a shot on Derek Queen because I say it all the time. Love attacking Dallas's front court, but tonight's just not the night.
Yeah. You think the Pelicans have been playing better defense lately? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't really seen that yet, but could be missing something. Do you feel that way, Brandon?
I mean, honestly, they probably have been, but not good enough to make me concerned for Dallas.
Yeah, I'm off Queen, man. That was a fun era. It was fun while it lasted. But with the Pelicans healthy, his minutes have just kind of stalled out. So his time will come again, just not right now. Thoughts on Asar? His price also just went up too. Asar, thoughts on Asar and Tobias? We're almost there, Rodney. Almost. Yeah, I am not forcing exposure to any of the Pelicans, and none of them are showing up in my lineups. Like you said, this game has the second highest total. You can take a shot on a guy like Zion or maybe Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. Herb Jones was someone I did have a min on earlier, but I took it off. Or at the end of the day, I just didn't feel overly passionate about any of them to force exposure there. Next game is an interesting one. It's the highest total on the slate, but it also has the second widest spread. Jazz going up against the Nuggets. For Utah, they are missing guys like Kevin Love. Niang's out. I mean, Kevin Love, I guess that kind of matters, but it didn't move the needle for me too much. What are you doing with the Jazz, man?
Taking a few shots. I put a 15% on Isaiah Collier. 3 straight games, he scored over 30 fantasy points, playing close to 30 minutes, only 4,200. I think he's a nice, solid value to get in the mix, especially with all the other chalky value. I think he can be sneaky tonight. Markkanen, I am taking a shot just mainly due to his upside. We've seen a few times this season where he scored 60 to 70. So ceiling is definitely there. Will it happen tonight? Hard to say, but definitely if they can somehow keep it close, I wouldn't be surprised. So definitely like his price at 8,100. And then Keontae George. I feel like this dude doesn't get enough love. Like it seems like he's another guy where his floor seems like it's around 50 points now. Been very consistent. Does he still have bad games? Yes. Who doesn't? But this dude is just a straight baller. He's, I think, one of the better offensive guards in the league currently right now. So definitely taking a shot in this game environment and threw a 10% min on him as well. If it were any other slate, especially if we didn't have all the value at center, I would consider Nurkic. This is one of those spots where I feel like they're going to need to lean on him quite a bit going against Jokic. But again, my focus is only around 3 centers, so didn't quite get there. But don't hate that as a GPP punt tonight.
Yeah, man. I totally get it. And I think especially if you are playing like 80+% of Jokic, it makes a lot of sense to force exposure to guys like George, Markkanen. I don't even hate a Filipowski play. Collier, I'm playing either way. But for me, I'm only going to be, well, okay, nice. I'm around 60% to Jokic. So I don't feel like I have to have exposure to this game as much because I like kind of playing the blowout narrative here where these guys don't keep it close. But you're right. George has been so good lately and people aren't talking about it enough. I hope he can stay hidden for a little bit longer so I'm not missing out. That's another man I had earlier that I took off just because I like a lot of guards on this slate. And so you got close to talking me into it, but I'm going to have to try to not play every player on the slate. So only 15% men for me on Isaiah Collier. We were on this. That first game, he popped off. We had a min where we were over the field on him. That was pure luck, by the way. There was no skill. His minutes have been all over the place all season until the last 3 games. And now it looks like he finally has a role on this team where they're playing him at least like 25 to 28 minutes. So that's why we like him. Hopefully that keeps up. Next up, we have the Denver side of this. I've been saying it for a while. You like playing guys against the Jazz. That's pretty much easy money every time. Peyton Watson's questionable for this team. So if he's out, a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. moves into the starting lineup at 4,200, which will be a solid value play in that situation. What are your thoughts on the Nuggets?
So the obvious Jokic, I know there's a lot of questions and concerns with his price, and then
It's been worse.
will it blow out or not? But spots like this, again, with all the value we have to, if it makes sense, I just play him. So I will be doing that. No one else on the slate has his ceiling. So again, if this game somehow stays close and he gets full run, I don't think anybody's going to come close to what he can do. So I will have quite a bit, and I think I'm at 60% there as well. Didn't go too crazy because again, there's just a bunch of other centers on this slate that you want some exposure to, and then again, never feel too comfortable going overboard on somebody almost 13K. Jamal Murray, I do like quite a bit. Didn't have to do anything there. His ceiling is just as high as any other guy on the slate. And I'm almost double the field. I'm at 41%. So definitely love that. Cameron Johnson, didn't have to force him in, but he is showing up naturally at 31%. He is a scary play for sure, super volatile. But he has shown life in a couple games, and this kind of spot, the pace they're going to be playing at, he should be able to get a lot of shots up. So just going to let that ride. Anybody else I'm on? Let me see. That might be it for me. Just those 3 guys.
Yeah. So for me, Jokic 12,500 is pricey, but like I said, it's been worse. Like I've played him at higher price tags, so sticker shock isn't crazy for me. With like you said, we have other value on this slate. If you do nothing besides some like basic settings, Jokic should show up in like 80-90% of your lineups. But because of some of the mins I have, he started to fall for me. So I put a 50% min on him just to get him to show up in now 60% of my lineups. Highest total on the slate. It's just a spot I'm always going to force exposure to. Jamal Murray, I have a 30% min on. Just a game I want to have exposure to. And so I like being over the field with a 30% min. Cam Johnson, has been a long ride, man. I was expecting greater things from him this season, but the season is not over. There's still time. And so I really like him at 25%, but he is a scary play. He can go out there and just do a lot of cardio 9 times, or I'll say 7 times out of 10 these days. But 5K price tag, good price tag for a guy who can get hot in a soft matchup. One thing we didn't talk about is pretty much all of these teams are playing again tomorrow. There's a couple of exceptions. So there is some risk to some star players if there is a blowout, not seeing as much run. And I'm saying it with Jokic, but there's other examples of this too in the next game and even the Boston game too. But yeah, there's one more guy too. Silly for the Millie play. There's no Millie in NBA, but you get the point. 5% min on Bruce Brown, 4,300. Similar play these days to Cam Johnson, just a little bit of a less, minutes floor. But in soft matchups like this, I'm willing to take a shot on a guy who shoots a decent amount. So that was kind of like the logic for the 5% min on Bruce Brown, but I'm still not going to even be over the field or anything like that. Next up, we have Memphis going up against the Thunder. Widespread, fifth highest total on the slate. Memphis, they are missing some guys. Ja Morant was ruled out. Brandon Clark is out. Vince Williams is out. The rest of these guys have been out for a minute here for Memphis. Anyone stand out for you?
Just two guys. Favorite play on this team tonight is Cam Spencer, of course. This dude has just been balling out the last several games. Definitely taking advantage of the opportunity he's been getting with all the injuries. I think it's like the last 6 games or so, however many it's been, he's scored at least 30 fantasy points with the last 2 over 40. Of course, this matchup isn't ideal, but he is still going to play a ton and still at a great price with how he's performing. He should probably be closer to the 7K range at this point. So definitely going to continue to play him with him still in the lower 6K range. And I was going back and forth on Aldama, but ended up just putting a 5% min on him. Again, not the best matchup, but OKC's front court will be hurting quite a bit tonight. They still have solid defenders playing, of course, but overall, I'm still willing to take a shot with the bigs that this team is missing. He'll get a lot of run. I wish he was a bit cheaper, but 6,900 isn't too bad for his ceiling. I mean, we just saw it last game. I know the matchup was better, of course, but potential is still there in this spot. So getting some exposure there. Definitely don't like anyone else enough to force him in.
Yeah, we're not even at OKC yet, but it's crazy how all the guys they have out, they're still fine. And we're playing them, but they're not even like that great of plays because they're just all good. Insane times we live in. But I have a 20% min on Cam Spencer. Like you said, the boy's been balling. He's been playing a ton of minutes. Matchup is tough, so that's the only reason why he's not a core player or anything like that for me, but I like him. There are guards I like a bit more. I'm not sure if he'll make the cut in my single entry lineups, but he's close. And then Santi Aldama, just been playing well, playing a lot of minutes. Not my favorite play, but I have a 6% min on him because of the injuries on the other side, like you mentioned. And that's pretty much it for me with Memphis. I can understand taking shots on some of the other players, but it's tough. It's tough. All right, the Thunder, that's where we have a lot of value on this slate. Chet Holmgren is out. Huge already by itself, but Isaiah Hartenstein is out as well. And so those are 2 bigs who play a ton of minutes for this team that aren't going to be seeing the court. And then Jalen with a Y is out as well, which just means the bigs that we usually see step up in this situation are nowhere to be seen. And so there's some super chalk we'll get to because of that. Aaron Wiggins is questionable. That matters a decent amount because he does play like 20-25 minutes a game. Guys like AJ Mitchell will benefit if he's out. Isaiah Joe will benefit if he's out. And Cason Wallace will benefit if he's out as well. 2 out of those 3 you should already have exposure to because of the other news. But, guys like Wallace would be a little bit more interesting there too. So a lot of news. How are you reacting to it? Oh, Cruz was out. We got that news?
Yep, we did.
Sweet. Oh, missed it.
Yeah, so out of the starters, I am taking a shot on SGA, just a 5% min. Typically don't like to play for blowouts. We say it all the time, but OKC, you kind of have to play them a little different than everybody else because we've seen time after time where they just smack a team the first 3 quarters and then sit their starters the whole fourth. But even in three quarters, SGA is good enough to still put up 60. So I feel like if he can do that, he can end up in the nuts. So definitely willing to take a shot there with the value we have again. I did think about Jalen Williams as well. I don't hate that play, but overall, he's just been kind of hovering around 30 to 40 fantasy points, and we definitely need more than that at 8,100. So didn't quite get there. As far as the turds on this team, of course, Carlson is probably my favorite. They're missing Hardenstein, Chet, and Jalen with the Y. So this dude's going to get a ton of run, if it is a blowout. 3K min price. I'm loading up on him at, let's see, 66%. So
yeah.
I have quite a bit. And then, of course, the other two favorite turds is Kenrich Williams and Isaiah Joe. Those are going to be two more guys who will be should be blowout proof and get decent run. And both of them are pretty close to min price too. So I have quite a bit of them as well. 47% Kenrich and 35 Isaiah Joe. 1% Wiggins is showing, and I actually have 1% Jalen Williams showing too, and 1% AJ Mitchell. So a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, it's just a spot I like a lot against a bad team. So I'm matching the field on SGA, 7% min there. I did up his projection just slightly just because he wasn't showing up without me doing that. And then I have a 13% min on Jalen Williams. And like you said, he's been fine from like an actual real life perspective, but for DFS, he hasn't been explosive. He hasn't been slate breaking. This is one of those matchups where that's possible. Even if the game doesn't stay close, I still think he could at 8,100, but that's asking for a lot. But I like exposure in soft matchups, so 13% min there. AJ Mitchell, I have a 10% min on, just matching the field, value play, someone that we've seen pop off before. Soft matchup, does well in a blowout situation still too, so I want exposure to him. Aaron Wiggins, I have a 10% min on. I think he'll be a little bit under-owned just because he has that Q tag on him. So I wanted to force exposure there. And then Isaiah Joe, Kenrich Williams, and Brandon Carlson all show up by themselves, so I didn't have to put them in on them. Let's see. Kenrich is showing up in 43% of my lineups. Isaiah Joe showing up in 44% of my lineups, and Brandon Carlson showing up in 54%. Before they were showing up in like the order of Carlson, Williams, and then Isaiah Joe was showing up around 30-ish%. Isaiah Joe, I would prefer to have around 30% of instead of 40% of, just because he is pretty shot dependent. But his price tag, I'm just going to roll with it and not over tinker, even though I really want to. I almost locked Brandon Carlson too. Would that have been crazy?
Nope. And we just got the news that Musa isn't starting, Plumlee is. So that makes me want to load up on Carlson even more now.
Yeah, I'm just going to lock Carlson. I'll still have exposure to Diabate, but man, the Hornets are playing games. They always do. I have some exposure to Plumlee too, if Plumlee doesn't suck like he always does. But man, I'm not trying to play those games today on this slate when we have someone that should at least play their role. I have to worry about anybody else. So that's how I'm treating the Hornets. What are you doing with them?
Yeah, I'm probably just going to let the DS dictate how much of those two guys I get. And Carlson is definitely my value priority.
Agreed. All right, next up we have Palo. Oh, well, we have the Magic going up against the Warriors. Magic are getting healthier, but let me see if there's any new information here that I'm missing from Orlando. Suggs is doubtful. Tristan De Silva is questionable. Still, we haven't gotten that news. If De Silva misses, Tyus Jones is someone that it looks like people are expecting to start in that situation. Is that right, or am I looking at that the wrong way?
Yeah, he started last game, I believe.
Okay. Do you like the Magic tonight, or are you kind of fading them?
Really just one guy, almost two if I didn't like well, actually I take that back, especially since with that Hornets news, I might take some shots on some centers that I mentioned I like but didn't want to take a shot. I'll start with Wendell first. I think he's at 4 straight games with at least 30 fantasy points or more. He's still only 5,400, and Golden State is definitely another team where I mention all the time, I love attacking their front court. They usually play a lot of small ball, so this should be a smash spot for him. So I'm going to throw a 15% min on him. And then Paolo is the second guy I like. Didn't have to do anything there. Right under 40%. It's just he's in better form now, playing a lot of minutes. And he's on under 9K. 8,700 is just too cheap for his potential upside. So I like him quite a bit. I did think about Anthony Black. He's been another guy who's been very consistent on his team. So don't hate matching the field there, but I didn't end up forcing it. And then you can make an argument for Bane too, but I didn't like him enough to force him in tonight either.
Yeah. I would say for me, I don't know. I just hate seeing the Warriors on any slate because they typically don't play great defense, but then they will when they feel like it. So there's a team that isn't my favorite to see, but Paolo Banchero at 25 or 27% ownership. I want to match the field on that. Looks like he's starting to come into form a bit more, and there's still no Franz and no Bane, or Bane's kind of like starting to take a bit of a step back now. So I like him dominating things. I have a 10% min on Wendell Carter Jr. just to kind of have exposure to another guy on this slate. And when the Warriors have been bad, it's usually their front court. So I want exposure to him there. So that's the 10% min on that. Warriors, I only forced exposure to Steph here. Did you do anything differently?
Yep, I was a little more aggressive though and forced 20% in. Magic bleed points against guards. He's playing at home too, so I'm making him a leverage play and going pretty aggressive there. And that was it for me.
All right. The next up, we have the Pistons going up against Portland for Detroit tonight. Last game on the slate. Detroit, they are without Ron Holland, which doesn't really matter too much to me. He's doubtful. I think Detroit's a team that a lot of people are looking at on this slate. I'm sure you are too, right?
Yep, super solid matchup for pretty much everybody here. Forced the 15% man on Cade. He's just way too good not to have exposure. He can put up a triple-double any given night, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did it in this spot. Have an uncomfortable amount of Tobias Harris and Azar Thompson, but they make a lot of sense in this matchup in their price. So just going to eat that. I still have to rerun with some adjustments that I'm doing, but currently at 64% Azar and 64% Tobias. So definitely scary, but I'm just going to trust the spot that they're in. And then didn't have to force Jaden Ivey in, but he just makes sense at his price and matchup. He sees around 20 minutes and can get you around 20 fantasy points, which is nice at his price tag. So those are kind of my main focal points, and I'm just double checking to see if anyone else is showing.
Yeah.
1% Stewart, and that's it.
Shane, no projection rule like 10 and up because those guys don't really show up, honestly. So I've never had to. But if they did, I would probably make that rule more often. But no one who has a projection of 8 points is going to show up in the DS unless something has gone terribly wrong. For me, I have a 15% min on Cade, 15% min on Asar Thompson. Tobias Harris, if he was showing up more than 60% for me, I would cap him, but he's showing up at like 54%. And then Asar Thompson showing up in 46% of lineups. I don't love them. Honestly, I wish they weren't showing up as much as they were, but just going to ride with the DS on that. And then Ivy's showing up in 15% of my lineups without doing anything to him, so I'm okay with that. This Portland side of things, I think I might like a little bit more than most, but there's not really, or I'll double check this, Jeremy Grant's doubtful, so we're expecting Murray to start, Chris Murray to start over him, and then with him not playing, that's a boost to guys like Avdia, Sharp, and Kamara. Any of these guys stand out for you?
Yeah, Shaden Sharp, of course. He's still priced decently for his upside. It is a tougher spot for him, but definitely willing to still go there with the guys that they're missing and didn't have to do anything there. He's showing at 25%, so definitely okay with that. I did force a 10% min on Avdia. Probably one of my least favorite pay up options tonight, but we all know his potential ceiling as well. So if Detroit decides just to have an off night and Avdia is smashing, he can definitely he's good enough to break a slate. And then again with that Hornets news, I'm willing to take a shot on somebody like Donovan Clingan. Last couple games, he's scored right under 40 fantasy points. He'll definitely be needed tonight quite a bit, especially with Grant doubtful. 6,300 is a great price for his potential, so 10% min there. And then didn't really get anywhere else. You can make a case for Kamara, but I don't like him enough to force him in.
Yeah, I get that. I just did a refresh new run in the DS, and I didn't have to lock Carlson. He just shows up in 100% of lineups now by himself. I'll ride with that. And yeah, I like the way things are looking right now. Just to double check that it's taking into account at least some of my mins. As long as they're showing up a little bit, that's all I really care about. But I have a 20% min on Sharp, but it looks like all their ownership is increasing. So I have to look a little bit closer at maybe rising those or increasing those. And then I have a 10% min on Avdia. Looks like he's going to be around 15%. I'm actually just going to go ahead and do it because I'm going to anyway. 15% on Avdia. I like having exposure to these late games on the slate, so I don't hate doing this. And then 7% min on Klingon. I like this spot for him at 6,300. So that's another play I just want to make sure was showing up in lineups. And then I'll do one more run, and we'll call it a day and go from there. I did realize when I did my most recent run, Diabot fell to about 15%. As long as he's showing up still, I'm okay with it. That's the big thing for me is I just want to make sure he's not completely wiped out because there is still no Kalkbrenner. And the matchup is still not awful without Mobley on the other side of it. And so he's a better points per minute player. But what are you thinking, Brandon?
Yeah, I was going to say Plumlee's not known to get a lot of run either. So Moose is definitely still in play, just not a core level play for me anymore.
Yeah, exactly. All right, perfect. And then we have everything ran well, liking the way things are looking. So we're going to call that a day. We don't have too much time. We'll be back tomorrow for that insane slate. B-Dub is going to hook us up with that one. But if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out in the Discord. Good luck. We'll see you all tomorrow. Peace out.